I think some might have been curious about how the heck do I fill this thing without a filler port at the high point of the system? It's pretty simple. I do it from the bottom. I'm actually going to try something different on this vehicle. It's kind of hard to see, but I put in a hydraulic quick connect fitting at the bottom. So I can just connect and disconnect that. It's self-sealing, and I'll leave just the male port down there with a ball on it, and that'll be my bottom filler port from now on. But you can do it the same with just about any sort of petcock on the bottom, as long as it has a small hose barb on it, so you can connect a hose to it. Once you connect to it and you open the valve, the fluid's going to find its own height. In this case, the system's about half full. So here's the current fluid height on the vehicle. So in order to fill it, I just need to start a siphon from this container, which is full, to get the fluid to flow down into the system. Unfortunately, the human lungs don't build vacuum really well, and in order to put enough vacuum on the system, I have to lift all the water in the system in order to put enough vacuum on this line to pull the fluid over this little hump. If the system was empty, I could put a little bit of vacuum on the line connected to the top port of the radiator, and I would be able to fairly easily just pull the fluid over and get the siphon started. But with it half full, that's a little difficult. That port up on the radiator is actually an elbow. It goes into the radiator and points right up underneath the top surface of the top tank. So it's going to tend to draw all of the air out of the radiator that makes its way up to that. So in order to start a siphon this way, you can do it two ways. I can either put some pressure on that line, in which case my lungs are strong enough to put enough pressure because I've got all the surface area of the water in the system to push down on. And push this fluid back up this line, push all the air out of it, and then gravity will act as a siphon and pull the fluid back over and down into the system. Another way to do it is to simply take this bucket and lower it down low enough so that the flow out of the system will push all the air back out and into the bucket. And then I can just raise the bucket and it will start flowing from the bucket back into the system. The way I rig these is I basically put a straw. In this case, it's an old piece of arrow shafting because it was the right size for this line. I put a straw just so I can put it right down in the bottom of the bucket. I've done these. Sometimes I put filters in line, just one of the clear like fuel filter, inline fuel filter, just to keep any particulate matter that might have found its way into the bucket from going back into the system. But I've been doing this for years like this. The beauty of it is you're not going to spill anything trying to pour it into a filler neck. You're not going to walk off and leave it. If you set it up right, you can. It's pretty much idiot proof. You can set it up and forget it. It'll just fill to its own height. And if you set the hoses up right, it'll just go until it's full. So you can go off and do something else while you're waiting for it. So let me get this siphon started, and then once the siphon starts, the system's only going to fill to its own fluid level, which means the highest point in this bucket is the driving force behind the fill, which means the engine is not going to get completely full unless I put this bucket up on top, which I'll do once I get the siphon started up. So I'll come back to this in a minute once it's running. And in fact, I'll probably wait till it's actually finished filling up, and then I'll show you some follow-on steps for it. Okay, so after a couple minutes, this is the end result. The coolant flows down the siphon line into the bottom. As it rises, it pushes air out. Eventually, it pushes all of the air out of the system, all of the air out of the radiator, and the fluid finds its own level with the level inside the tank. So, no mess, no spill. It just sits there. If I could secure this bucket, I could actually run the engine through a heat cycle or two and get the rest of the air out. One of the places this thing will trap air, there's some up in the heater, I'm certain. And of course right here, this is higher than the radiator. So you're going to trap air here. Caterpillar and Stewart and Stevenson, when they came up with this installation, never did anything to mitigate this, so they weren't worried about it. So I don't think I will be either. As soon as the thermostat opens, it should push all the air around into the top of the radiator where it will be trapped, and it'll come out on the next heat cycle. If it bothers you, you can, at this point, since you have a supply of fluid above this point, because there's air in here right now, if I loosen the hose clamp, I could slide a scribe up in under here and open a little opening and break the seal, and you'd hear air coming out as the weight of the fluid push the air out the top, and eventually you'd start getting fluid out here at the top of the hose, and you'd watch the level in the hoses drop as you did that. Now what I'm going to do is I will break the siphon, lift that up out of the thing. See, there's the siphon broken, and the fluid comes down, finds its own height, which is a little higher than the bucket level because there's a little more fluid in there. I can apply a little pressure on that other side, and I can push some more fluid out to the point and get it down to where I have no fluid left in this big hose. I can basically blow that fluid back out this line and drain it right down to that point. Then I'll disconnect that line and hook the line up to the expansion tank. Then I top off the expansion tank to the upper sight glass level, and I can start the engine and run it through a heat cycle, and it'll start to purge the last remaining air in the system. So pretty straightforward, but yeah, you don't have to have a filler at the top of the system, and it's not any more complex. Like I said, I've been doing this for years like this, and it's been the easiest way for me to do it without making a mess. Because I use that same hose that I fill with, I use that to drain the system as well. In the case of that quick connect fitting I put on down at the bottom, this hose will be a permanent fixture in my truck toolbox. I'll put it in a bag and just have it ready for if I ever have to work on the cooling system, because I can draft out of any container this way to refill the system, or do any cooling maintenance, or do anything else like that with the cooling system. So anyway, hope you found this informative. Have a good day.